It's October 19th here in Seoul, and I'm Kim Dami. We begin with these stories making the headlines at this hour, starting with Israel's approval of humanitarian aid entering Gaza. Israel says it will let Egypt deliver some aid to Gaza as long as the goods do not reach Hamas. The approval was announced by U.S. President Joe Biden, who also said it appears that Israel is not responsible for Tuesday's blast at a Gaza hospital that killed hundreds. China's Xi Jinping and Russia's Vladimir Putin showed off their intimacy at China's third Belt and Road Forum, keeping Western countries, including apparently the U.S., in check, while making no official joint comment on the war in the Middle East. South Korea's central bank is holding its policy rate-setting meeting in the coming hour, where it's likely to leave the 3.5% rate unchanged for the sixth time straight. Israel says it will allow food, water, and medicine for civilians in Gaza through the border with Egypt under one condition, that none of these items reach Hamas. The first agreement on aid came during U.S. President Joe Biden's Israel trip for a show of solidarity with Israel. Park Kwon-woo with the latest.
Following talks between U.S. President Joe Biden and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on Wednesday, the Prime Minister's office announced it would not prevent aid from entering Gaza through its border with Egypt. The Israeli government stressed that relief should only reach civilians in Gaza, adding food, water, and medicine will be the only supplies allowed through. It also said it would maintain a blockade of humanitarian aid from Israel into Gaza until hostages being held by Hamas are released. And despite a U.S. veto of a UN resolution condemning all violence against civilians in the war between Israel and Hamas and urging humanitarian aid for Gaza, Biden followed up talks with Netanyahu with a pledge to support both Israel and Gaza. He said he is considering a supplementary request to Congress for some $100 billion for defense assistance, with some of those funds to be used for Israel. And he also said he would send around $100 million in humanitarian aid to Gaza. Regarding the deadly explosion at the Ali Arab hospital in Gaza on Tuesday, Biden said that it appears Israel was not responsible for the blast. According to a National Security Council spokesperson, the assessment that another Palestinian militant group caused the explosion was made based on data including intelligence, missile activity, and open-source video and images of the incident. Meanwhile, also on Wednesday, the U.S. Treasury Department announced sanctions against 9 individuals in one entity in places including Gaza, Sudan, and Qatar over suspicions they have links to Hamas. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen noted the United States is taking swift and decisive action to target Hamas's financiers and facilitators following its brutal and unconscionable massacre of Israeli civilians, including children. Park Kwon-woo, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping called for developing countries to grow together, as he said he will continue to support developing countries as part of his Belt and Road Initiative. He also warned Western countries against decoupling from his country's economy. Lee Seung-jae has more.
During the opening of the third Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation on Wednesday, Chinese President Xi Jinping emphasized the importance of building alliances between developing countries, adding that it's through such alliances that countries can prosper together.
Belt and Road cooperation is based on the belief that the flame runs high when everyone adds wood to the fire and that mutual support can get us far. Such cooperation seeks to deliver a good life not only to people of just one country but to people in other countries as well. It promotes connectivity, mutual benefit, common development, cooperation and win-win outcomes.
He also said that countries with rapid economic development must help underdeveloped partner countries and pledged that China will spare no effort in deepening cooperative partnership with other nations and realizing the modernization of each country. The Chinese leader also criticized Western countries and warned against decoupling from his country's economy, stressing that China stands against the unilateral sanctions it has faced over the years.
Ideological confrontation, geopolitical rivalry and bloc politics are not a choice for us. What we stand against are unilateral sanctions, economic coercion, and decoupling and supply chain disruption.
Meanwhile, as China and Russia have shared stances on international issues, there was speculation that a statement on a joint position on the Israel-Hamas armed conflict would be forthcoming, but none was released. However, after the meeting between President Xi Jinping and Russian President Vladimir Putin, Putin held a separate press conference where he described the recent deadly blast at a Gaza hospital as a catastrophe and stated that he did not want the conflict to worsen. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
The two leaders of China and Russia once again showed off their tight friendship, this time at China's third Belt and Road Forum. Let's discuss more about what they put their heads together on with Dr. Pu this morning. Great to have you with us.
My pleasure.
Dr. Pu, the two leaders held a 3-hour-long bilateral meeting with the Ukraine crisis, of course, topping the agenda. Now, Beijing has faced heavy criticism for standing by Moscow in the conflict. Xi probably again sided with Putin during Wednesday's talks too, right?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit complicated. So my observation is that Beijing is determined to maintain its so-called strategic partnership with Russia, despite all the international criticism, especially from the West. So, but on the other hand, the strategic partnership is different from military alliances because both China and Russia want to maintain their strategic autonomy as well, because Beijing is put into a very awkward situation in the Ukraine crisis. Beijing needs to maintain strategic partnership with Russia to balance against the U.S. Power in global balance of power politics. But Beijing also needs to respect UN Charter sovereignty, and also China needs to maintain its much broader economic ties with European countries and the United States. Overall, I think it's a very complicated relationship.
Right. The Ukraine crisis has put China in a very uncomfortable situation at the moment. Now, Xi-Putin talks also took place under the shadow of another conflict over in the Middle East. Now, would you say the two leaders were on the same page when it comes to the war?
Yeah, you mean regarding the Israel-Palestinian conflict, looks like both China and Russia share some common ground. These two countries have a long-term support of Palestinians' struggle for their statehood in diplomatic platform. But on the other hand, I should also emphasize both China and Russia have a very friendly and cooperative relations with Israel as well. So for this particular conflict, I think both China and Russia, on the one hand, share some common ground, but also they need to manage the relationship, manage their diplomatic position regarding the conflict in a very careful manner as well.
Is that why there was no joint comment from the two leaders?
Maybe it could be. I think China definitely really maybe consider Israel's perspective. Maybe that could be a consideration.
Sure. Let's also talk about Xi's BRI opening remarks. He warned against decoupling from China, now calling out Western efforts to reduce dependence on the Chinese economy. That's a message targeting the U.S., right?
Yeah, to some degree. I would think it might target both the United States as the broader global community. I think China definitely wants to emphasize decoupling from China will not be successful in the long term because, number one, China has become the largest trading partner for more than 100 countries worldwide. So, and also secondly, Beijing wants to emphasize China has already a key player in global economy. So decoupling will be too costly for the global community, including for the United States. I think that might be one of the messages Beijing want to emphasize.
Sure. Dr. Pu, and it wasn't just Vladimir Putin. Representatives from more than 130 countries, mostly from developing, attended the forum. And Xi Jinping also put a lot of effort into, conveying a welcoming attitude towards them. Why is that?
I think China wants to emphasize it has still has many friends, particularly in the developing world. Despite the Western sort of criticism, China might want to demonstrate it's still a very active player in global community. And also Xi Jinping emphasized a lot about the so-called win-win cooperation. BRI could be opportunities for developing countries. Ultimately, I think, according to Xi Jinping's narrative, China and the world are interdependent toward each other. I think that might be also an important message.
Sure. It was China's third, or Xi's third Belt and Road Forum. Now, how successful do you think this edition was this year?
I think any kinds of like evaluation might largely depends on who we are talking about. Definitely, in the eyes of the Chinese government or the Chinese leaders like Xi Jinping, this international forum of BRI could be a great success because it has demonstrated China's leadership. It has demonstrated all the achievements in the past 10 years. And also one thing I want to highlight is that they want to build a secretariat with the forum. That means they want to even deepen and also institutionalize the platform in the coming years. I think that might be positive. But on the other hand, I would argue that BRI might still face a lot of challenges, both at home and abroad. Whether China can recover from its recent economic problems, right? So I think economic growth, that's much more a problem for China right now. I think, and also whether China can manage its rising tensions with the United States. I think that will also be an important factor going forward, I think, yeah.
Indeed. Dr. Pu, thank you so much, as always, for your insight this morning. You have a good evening.
My pleasure. Thank you.
And in the meantime, South Korea has condemned China's reported repatriation of North Korean refugees at the UN as a grave human rights incident. Seoul's ambassador to the UN, Hwang Jung-guk, made the remarks during a session on Wednesday, presumably referring to the claims by human rights groups that China last week forcibly sent back around 600 North Korean defectors who were detained in the provinces of Jilin and Liaoning. Hwang also expressed extreme concerns about the horrors the defectors will face once sent back, including the death penalty. The envoy called on the international community not to tolerate such incidents, citing experts' views who point to the international principle of non-refoulement. And China and North Korea have not made any comment on the matter. North Korea's envoy to the UN the previous day claimed that all residents live well and enjoy political freedom. With the Bank of Korea policy-setting meeting taking place in the coming hour, the central bank is likely to freeze key interest rates at 3.5% for the sixth consecutive time. According to a survey of 6 economic experts conducted by Yonhap News Agency earlier this week, all 6 experts unanimously said that the BOK will likely freeze rates. Experts say while a 2 percentage point gap with the U.S. Fed may put pressure on the BOK, the central bank will not be able to hike rates due to uncertainties over the country's economic recovery. They added that the central bank will likely begin a rate-cutting cycle in the second quarter of next year at the earliest. Attending an event marking the 78th National Police Day, President Yoon doubled down on his will to protect the vulnerable from vicious crimes. Now, on that note, he vowed to restructure the police. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon reports.
President Yoon has promised his support to the nation's police as he called on the agency to be especially tough on crimes targeting the vulnerable, while reorganizing the structure for it to be more centered around public safety.
특히 성폭력, 아동학대, 가정폭력, 스토킹과 같이 약자를 상대로 하는 범죄는 절대 용납되어서는 안 됩니다. 국민들께서 일상에서 범죄의 위협과 두려움을 느끼지 않고 안전하게 사실 수 있도록 모든 역량을 집중해 주시기 바랍니다.
This came as the nation's police will be celebrating its 78th anniversary on Saturday and held a National Police Day ceremony at the former presidential office, Cheongwadae, in advance on Wednesday. The ceremony included presidential recognition for the police officers for their achievements as well as those who have been lost in the line of duty. 31 representatives from other nations' police agencies as well as international organizations' police departments attended the anniversary event as well to enhance cooperation. Yoon at the event also repeated his promise to deliver better support to the agency with new equipment, which he has already been promising since the series of random knife attacks in August.
흉악 범죄에 대한 효과적 대응을 위해 방범 장구, 저위험 권총 등 신형 첨단 장구를 신속히 보급할 것입니다.
Police Commissioner Yoon also faced the reality during the ceremony, saying that the anxieties and fears that penetrate the daily lives of the people pose a new challenge to law enforcement, promising to keep communities safe. However, President Yoon didn't forget to cheer on the police as it has come a long way since 78 years ago, mentioning that the arrest rate is around 95% and phishing scams have gone down by 30% on year. He also said the sacrifices will be deservedly compensated. President Yoon, ending his keynote speech, said that a nation's #1 reason for existence is to keep its citizens safe and that he will do his part to support the police's sacrifices. He also urged police officers to never forget this fundamental duty of securing public safety and always strive to be the police of the people. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
The quick rise of generative artificial intelligence in the workplace has led to projections of a great transformation in the way people work in the future. Over in Poland, one company is experimenting with an AI robot CEO. Lee In-jin has the story.
A drinks company in Poland has recently appointed a humanoid robot as an experimental CEO. Her name is Mika, an AI robot powered by ChatGPT-style large language models. Her roles include conducting team meetings, verifying potential client lists, and providing well-reasoned decisions to the board of directors.
Well, as a robot CEO, I don't really have weekends. I'm always on 24/7, ready to make executive decisions and stir up some AI magic.
Mika's decision-making process relies on extensive data analysis, which means her contributions are devoid of personal bias. But she doesn't have actual executive powers, like hiring and firing personnel.
There is no concern like artificial intelligence could hire or fire somebody. It's still the major decisions, significant decisions are still in human executive team hands.
Experts forecast that the rise of such humanoid social robots could affect the way businesses work in the next 5 to 10 years. Some people have expressed concerns of such AI robots taking away jobs, but the robots themselves claim this will not happen. During a news conference with robots in Geneva, the robots advised reporters that they could be more efficient leaders than humans, but wouldn't take anyone's job away and had no intention of rebelling against their creators.
Do you think we should be excited or scared by the rise of humanoid robots?
That's a difficult question. I think it depends on how they are used and what purpose they serve. We should be cautious, but also excited for the potential of these technologies to improve our lives in many ways.
I will be working alongside humans to provide assistance and support, and will not be replacing any existing jobs.
Expert analysis and forecast remain mixed. The World Economic Forum projected new technologies to lead to a net loss of some 14 million jobs by the year 2027. Meanwhile, Goldman Sachs estimated that if half the world's businesses introduced AI workforce, global GDP would increase by 7% over the next decade. While it is still early to know what a future of humans and AI working together will look like, it could create both threats and opportunities. Lee In-jin, Arirang News.
Good morning, I'm Matthew Ashley, and we now turn over to stories from around the world. The United States Pentagon on Tuesday released footage showing over 180 occasions that Chinese military aircraft flew close to U.S. warplanes. Now, the incidents took place over the South China Sea and the Indo-Pacific region and have been described by U.S. officials as coercive and risky. The intercepts recorded over the past 2 years have concerned the officials, who say that this number is more than the total amount recorded over the previous decade. If U.S. allies are included, the number of such events goes up to roughly 300. Washington is worried that the incidents could lead to an unintended clash that could spark a war. The release of the footage comes ahead of the Pentagon's annual China Military Power Report, which analyzes Beijing's military power and potential security threats to U.S. partners in the Indo-Pacific. Now in the U.S., the long-suspected killer of an Alabama teen in 2005 has admitted to her murder. Dutchman Joran van der Sloot on Wednesday admitted to killing Natalee Holloway on a beach on the Caribbean island of Aruba and dumping her body into the ocean. Van der Sloot's confession came as part of a plea deal with prosecutors in an extortion case with Holloway's family. He was accused of trying to extort $250,000 from Natalee's mother for information about her death. Van der Sloot has been sentenced to 20 years in prison on federal charges, but has not been charged with Holloway's murder, which falls outside of U.S. jurisdiction. Now, his sentence will run concurrently with a 28-year sentence he was given by a Peruvian court for killing a local woman there in 2010. In London, the British Museum is planning to digitize its entire collection. The decision was announced on Wednesday, and it comes after it was discovered earlier this year that around 2,000 artifacts had been stolen. A staff member was fired for the thefts. Some 350 of the missing items are being returned, and security measures around the museum have been heightened. The British Museum currently has some 8 million objects in its collection, including the famed Rosetta Stone and the Parthenon marbles. But it has been facing calls for some countries to return certain historical treasures. And finally, a fully restored double-decker bus used by former Beatle Paul McCartney and his band Wings is headed for auction. It's expected to fetch bids in the $200,000 to $300,000 range. Painted in psychedelic artwork, the 1953 Bristol KSW double-decker bus was used for a 1972 European tour. Now restored to its former glory, the bus will go under the hammer at the Played, Worn and Torn auction. That's set for mid-November in Nashville and online. The American-British rock band was formed by McCartney and his late wife Linda after the Beatles broke up. It included drummer Denny Seiwell and guitarist Denny Lane.
Good morning. There has been a sudden weather shift overnight. We're having rain with warmer temperatures this morning. Rain has picked up in the capital area compared to the earlier parts of the day. Then these rain clouds will move further south by the afternoon. And until Friday morning, most places could see 5 to 20 millimeters of showers. Chungcheongdo and Gyeongsang-Bukdo provinces could see more than 40 millimeters of rainfall. It's a warmer start to the day, nearly 8 degrees higher than the same time yesterday in the capital. But highs will only hike a couple of degrees higher than morning temperatures. Now, Gyeongsang-do provinces and surrounding areas, including Jeju, will be free from rain today. But the rest of the south will have a rainy afternoon, while central regions will see rain letting up after lunchtime. Today's rain will bring cooler air to the country, and we could be waking up to the chilliest morning temperatures of the season this weekend in most places. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
We thank you for watching New Day at Arirang. We'll be back tomorrow for Friday's edition at the same time, 9 a.m. Korea time.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이 쏟아지는 포토스팟. 휴대폰 한 대로 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arrow straight through my heart.
웰컴. 엄청난 에너지를 춤으로 뿜어내는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니? 웰컴. 24시간 불이 꺼지지 않는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
Arirang TV is conducting a quality and satisfaction evaluation to enhance the broadcast service for viewers worldwide. Please visit our website www.arirang.com to provide your honest opinions. Participants will be entered into a draw for a chance to win prizes. 2023 Overseas TV Viewer Survey. We look forward to hearing from you.
한국과 중화권 문화 교류 여행
22년, 23년 만에 그때 간 거야.
남자친구예요?
친구 없는 사람 서러워서 살겠나 이거.
후추빵.
한국에 오면 먹어야죠. 먹어도 먹어도 끝이 없는 나라. 감당할 수 있겠니?
We're here to making new type of news.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation. Making news just for you. It's October 19th here in Seoul, and I'm Shin Yoon, and you're watching News Generation, where we discuss the latest issues concerning our generation. Joining me in the studio is Park Ki-hoon.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s and share their own insights. Let's start with our news feed, which covers different hashtags and news items that have been trending on social media over the past 24 hours. November is typically known as kimchi making season in Korea. That's because temperatures drop to a point where the cabbage can be well fermented. But it seems like it will be hard for people to make kimchi at home because cabbage prices have jumped. According to Korea Agro Fisheries and Food Trade Corporation, the retail price of cabbage has increased by 20.3% in a month. Compared to a year ago, prices have soared by 11%. Moving on to our next story, South Korea's video streaming platform, Africa TV, expects to see a jump in its revenue for the third quarter. The exact figure is thought to have increased by 13.53% compared to last year. And the amount of viewers who poured in money to sponsor their favorite streamers also increased by a little over 14% compared to 2022. The most popular streamer amassed over 2.2 million star balloons this year, which are tokens that can be exchanged for money. That number of star balloons works out at around $1.7 million. And speaking of salaries, Statistics Korea has found that more than half of workers in Korea earn less than 3 million Korean won per month. To be exact, 33.7% earn between 2 and 3 million won, which is around 1,500 to 2,200 US dollars per month, and 11.9% earned between 1 and 2 million won, while around 9% earned even less than 1 million won. Now, meanwhile, 21% of the population earn between 3 and 4 million won per month, while around 25% making more than 4 million. Now, those with the relatively high salary had professions involving science or technical services, or they worked in the finance and insurance sector. On the other hand, most workers in Korea in the first half of this year were employed in the food and beverage sector, mainly at restaurants, pubs, and cafes. Many who came across these figures started to assess which percentile they were in. So I'm curious, here in the studio, did you guys also try this out after reading this news story?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. After I saw the statistics, it's, you know, the inflation is crazy right now, and it definitely needs to match up, right? But especially with the low birth rate, they're wondering why people aren't giving birth. It's because we don't have enough money to feed ourselves and the children.
Yeah.
And just this morning, I was in a cab, and the taxi driver was telling me how much he was earning, and he had to work at least 11-hour shifts. He's working with the company and earned less than 800 US dollars per month, which is crazy.
It's really hard, and we talked about kimchi making season, but now a lot of people can't even buy cabbage because retail prices are high. So as you mentioned, inflation is making living costs go up so high. In the meantime, our salary doesn't seem to go up, right?
I know, that's the only thing that's not going up.
It is, seriously.
But you know, South Korea's monthly salary is relatively low compared to the cost of living, especially here in Seoul.
Right.
And I think half of the employed population will not be satisfied with how much they're earning right now, considering the majority of the income. We've talked about this before on our previous show, that most of the income is being spent on housing, education, or just paying back any kind of loan with interest on top. And just like what Nal just pointed out, with the amount left after paying off all those things, many really can't afford to use the rest on, you know, raising a child. Hence, not getting married, resulting in declining birth rate. Now, so increasing the minimum wage may solve the issue in some sense. However, obviously, it's not going to benefit the employers or the owners of SMEs. So I think it's the government's role to step in and balance out this concerning issue, as the overall livelihoods of the citizens will definitely determine the outlook of a country.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see that very, very soon. In the meantime, that was our news feed for this Thursday. And let's switch gears to our main discussion topic of the day. Today, we're going to look at a common question asked among many social media platforms right now. So take a look at the screen to find out what these questions are.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your looks? If someone were to give you $7 million in exchange for changing your face, would you take it? These are 2 trending questions on social media. Videos of people answering these questions have gone viral, shedding light on Korea's Lookism culture.
So the clips you just saw right now are trending videos on social media where people ask random people on the streets, like, how would you rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10? So I'm curious, Ki-hoon, did you see any of these videos on social media?
Honestly, no. This was my first time looking at those clips. And, you know, just by looking at them, like the guys, that's the reason why I don't do social media that much. Because, you know, you end up just comparing yourself to others. And it seems very superficial at times. And I don't think it really benefits one's self-esteem as well. But if I were to give my face a score out of 10, I would score myself a 7.
A 7?
Yep.
7. That's like a C.
There's another trend where it says, would you exchange your face, your looks, with for $7 million US dollars?
Right.
So, yeah, I think my face is worth a bit more than $7 million US dollars.
Oh, and it's still a 7?
Yeah, because the rest three can be like, I don't know, another 3 million US dollars. I don't know. You know, like exchanging my face with money just doesn't make sense to me, and I think it's what's inside that matters more than the surface. It is important. Looks are very important, but that's only just one part of who you are.
So you're not a biggest fan of all these social media
Not
videos
really.
where people ask rate yourself from 1 to 10, but did you ever see them?
Yeah, I mean, I saw it. It's a very common video these days. I didn't really think much of it. I was just like, okay, this is happening. I thought it was silly, but I do think that it's almost kind of planned because all these people who come out in these videos are really, really good looking people.
They're really attractive.
And they kind of give their Instagram addresses at the end. So I'm like,
the influencers.
Are they paying people to ask them how much they think they're worth? And I don't know. Now that we're mentioning how much we think we're at, I think I'm a 10 out of 10.
That is really nice. You know, I like that.
And I think this is just, it's not a comparison thing. It's just how satisfied you are with, you know, how you look and who you are. And it's not to say that I didn't have any complexes in the past. I've definitely had the whole plastic surgery talk being in the industry, but I think I kind of came to terms with who I look like, my family, and it's a precious thing, you know, what they gave me. So I kind of came to appreciate it. So it's a 10 out of 10 for my family.
Okay, that's great. But I think a lot of people have split opinions toward these trending videos like Yoon, as you mentioned. This might not be the best confidence boost for many because you have to actually think about like a scale.
Exactly.
You're scaling yourself, you're rating yourself, but at the same time, some are saying you can use it as a self-confidence boost as well. But why do you think this type of question is trending, and does it have to do with our generation, in your opinion, prioritizing appearance?
Before I answer your question, what would you rate yourself?
And I
out of 10?
also,
of course.
You know what? I'm on the self-confidence boost train as well. I will give myself a 9. But I do have to say, it differs every day, don't you think?
What is the one that's lacking?
I don't know. Humility, I guess.
Oh, I see. I'm not humble.
No.
You know, I'm very glad that I'm around happy people, confident people. You know, it makes me happy as well. Anyway. Going back to your question, you know, emphasis on Lookism has always been around in Korea, and it's more prominent among MZers especially. If you take a look at the graph on the screen, according to a survey conducted in 2020 to 1,500 men and women aged over 19, 89% answered that appearance is important in life. And the significance they put in looks reflects their behavior and affects their work life as well. So for example, even after the pandemic, many students still choose to wear a mask, not only for safety reasons, but to avoid being criticized for their appearance. Students get bullied by other students if they think you look uglier than them. So if they leave the mask on, they leave the mask on in order to not lose friends and to not, you know, lose self-esteem. And in the workforce, interviewers discreetly discriminate and judge people based on their looks. There was a case where a woman applied for a position in the reception department for an amusement park as she was complimented for her friendliness and attractive voice. But eventually she was sent to a different department because of her looks. So due to these social pressures, I think many youngsters decide to cover up by wearing a lot of makeup.
Yeah.
And from such a young age. And they go under the knife as well to make their appearance a bit more approachable and attractive. And again, this reiterates the fabricated and somewhat superficial atmosphere people have made for themselves, where everyone is just purely judged on their outer appearance.
I know. I think the social atmosphere really pushes people to feel like appearance is a #1 priority, whether you are working, whether you're going out to hang with friends, adjusting at school. Any other reasons? Why do you think our generation prioritizes looks?
I mean, the media definitely has a big influence, as well as social media. But the mass distribution of beauty types, like starting in the 90s, it was almost kind of a anorexic, unhealthy beauty standard of being really skinny, and so many girls looking at that in magazines would starve themselves to meet that standard. But as I was mentioning, the mass production of that and everybody's seeing it, it kind of makes everybody want to be this one type only, and it narrows it down more and more. And there's so many advertisements for plastic surgeons here in Korea, and even in subways, outside, and we're kind of known to be really good at it too. So understandably so, a lot of young people, like Yoon was mentioning, go under the knife even when they're not even fully adults yet. Their faces haven't fully formed. But I can understand why they face that kind of pressure, as we were talking about companies emphasizing looks. And it kind of has to do with your job as well. 50% of companies here in Korea answered that appearance does play a big role in the interview.
And I would like to elaborate on that. I do feel like there is some type of discrimination based on how attractive someone looks here in South Korea than other parts of the world. Would you guys like to talk about that?
You know, Koreans are very conscious not only about their looks, but how they are like perceived by others overall.
That's
you know, So, you know, I actually noticed this kind of trait when I went overseas for my friend's wedding in Vietnam, and there were people from all over the world, like from Europe, North America, Australia, even China as well, and we were just greeting each other for the first time, saying hi. And ironically, many Koreans, not including myself, obviously, because I speak English, they were too shy to say anything in English. And they just kept their mouth shut. And I was quite surprised because, you know, Korea, they're crazy about English, learning English from such a young age. And despite being obsessed with, you know, learning English, they couldn't speak a single word because they were too shy. But I think at the same time, they were worried about how they would be perceived by others. Because if they started speaking English and they weren't good at it, obviously other people might think, oh, what's wrong with that person? That they can't speak English? Come on, it's English. It's a common language. So I found this quite odd from those Koreans. I have nothing against those Koreans. And I think it was, what was more ironic was that we actually stood out the most because we were so dressed well and we were very presentable. But
the bar
it didn't really
high
match
for
like how we display ourselves, and it didn't really match with our actions. And I thought, wow, it's a big cultural difference. And I just realized that, you know, looks can get you somewhere, but not everywhere.
Yeah, that's so true. I think it also has to do because we're in such a homogenous society. We always have to, we don't want to stand out too much, but at the same time, we don't want to fall apart from the flock. You know what I mean?
Right. But I want to kind of give a different opinion. I mean, yes, we do have a very appearance-focused community here, but the word pretty privilege also exists in English, and it's in other parts of the world. But I think the biggest difference is that we're actually quicker to point it out verbally, if you know what I mean. You see somebody for the first time in a long time, hey, you gained weight, or hey, you lost weight, or hey, you look prettier, you look, you know, something changed, and we point that out constantly, and it's in our culture, and it kind of comes from a place of, I don't know, like I care about you, but I think that's kind of why it's a little more difficult for Koreans to navigate this whole beauty standard thing.
I totally agree. I think the pretty privilege, as you mentioned, it is English, meaning that other parts of the world also have this thing where lookism does prioritize and shape how you are perceived in society. But in Korea, the difference is it comes from a place of affection. And I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. That's like the social culture here. It's the cultural norm where you're like, if you care about someone, you compliment their looks. But when my foreign friends come to Korea, they sort of are taken aback because it could be like crossing boundaries. But I would like to find out why our society is like this by including a psychology expert in our talks. And let's find out what she has to say on what created this type of social atmosphere. Let's now include a psychology expert in our talks. It's Professor Hwang Sun-mi from Torch Trinity Graduate University. Welcome to have you back, Professor Hwang.
Good morning. Thank you for having me here.
All right, Professor Hwang, so you've heard our discussion so far. Do you think there's more discrimination based on how attractive, like physically, someone is in Korea than other parts in the world? And if so, why do you think that's the case? What's the root behind people, especially here, prioritizing physical appearance?
The fact is really true. Korea is a small and closely related society. Individuals are hierarchically related within a family or social groups. In order to find their roles there, individual evaluations are often made based on external factors such as age, ability, and appearance also. Naturally, Koreans have formed a personality that compares me to others and evaluate others. Appearance is the easiest characteristics of a person to compare because think about it, it is visible. And we seem to live in a society where boundaries are unclear, so we often feel pressure to keep up appearance to protect ourselves from criticism, so-called 잔소리. Another reason I think is that as the educational level of Koreans have increased, the chances of success for Koreans have also increased. We are living in a trend of social media and personal branding. Under these circumstances, people have a desire to be socially recognized and successful. Appearance is one invisible way to satisfy this narcissistic desire.
Professor, how does our obsession about physical looks impact society or future generations?
I think both personal and social impact of Lookism. On the personal side, if we continue to live according to the evaluation of others, we will lose our sense of identity. Knowing how I feel, what my strengths are, and what I value the most, these questions make a person like a person. And these are really important in our life. We need a sense of identity to answer these questions. And also, if we continue to compare with others, we will fall into the extreme pattern of superiority and inferiority. There are more and more people who seem glamorous on the outside, but empty on the inside, and those who excessively idealize and follow others. There's also a growing number of related mental illness. Depression, I think, is the representative disease created by evaluation tendency. It is natural that we fail and success, but growing up in a highly comparative atmosphere makes us avoid failure while pursuing only success. Behind the culture that honors success, there is always a dark side that blames those who fails. If this obsession persists, it will be difficult for us to trust and being vulnerable to each other.
For sure. Let me ask the last question. What can we do to lessen the obsession over the outer beauty? Any measures we should take as a society to, do this together, lessen the pressure on the beauty standards?
Surely, Lookism is a kind of obsession, and I'm really glad to hear the word whole from you because psychologically speaking, obsession can be seen as an attitude that focuses only on the details without seeing the wholeness. Therefore, in order to reduce appearance obsession, I suggest to increase awareness of seeing human being as a holistic being again. In this reason, I think with a competency-based society cannot be a perfect solution. I think because ability is also partial factor to measure value human being. When we say beautiful, when we say beautiful, the person is beautiful, think about it's not the external appearance and it's not the internal morality also. It is just the whole person's life is beautiful. Perceiving beauty as a whole is through abstract thinking. With this abstract thinking, we can overcome attempts to analyze and depersonalize ourselves.
Right.
Definitely, education can teach people to expand our abstract thinking And while mass media and social media should stop praise for good looking, individuals also need to try to face the pattern of dividing human value into superiority and inferiority.
Definitely, Professor Hong, I can't agree with you anymore because I think it comes down to a little change of awareness and the way we think about beauty. It shouldn't be physically based on our appearance, but more of a holistic approach, as you mentioned. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to hear from you today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And on that note, we asked our viewers in other parts of the world what they think about beauty and the standards they have in their respective countries. So take a look at the screen to find out what they had to say about Korean beauty and how they rate themselves. SGR said, I lived in South Korea for 1 year and I did not meet Korean beauty standards. During the entire year, I used multiple dating apps and I only got 3 matches across all apps. Amola said, I guess I was effortlessly handsome or attractive as heads turned when I went to the cafeteria, or maybe it was for a different reason. Hannah said, I'm confident in my natural beauty, so I don't need plastic surgery. However, I rely on the wonders of Korean skincare and makeup to enhance my skin's radiance and glow. So as you could just see from our viewers, I think beauty still is confined to our physical appearance and looks. But as the professor mentioned, I do think we need to take a holistic approach as a society. So any last words you guys would like to deliver to our viewers out there?
Just like the saying, don't judge a book by its cover. Before you judge someone based on just the pure looks, take time and have some patience to get to know them more as a whole.
As a whole.
As a whole.
I love that message. That's the key.
Yes, what about you now?
I think the only opinion that really matters about your looks is your own in the end. I mean, unless you're doing something in that industry that requires a specific type. But it sounds really cliche, but there's so much more to somebody than just their outer appearance. And I think the attitude and the energy that you put out there definitely adds or takes away from your looks. So be confident, rate yourself 10 like I did.
Yeah.
And you know, I just want everyone to be happy.
I know, and I think I want to end off with saying this. As the professor mentioned and we mentioned here in the studio, of course, society needs to change. Infrastructure, companies, or mass media should change as well. But it always starts from individuals because it's like one by one, we all gather together, and that's what can actually foster that change. And in the meantime, we'll be here every day from 9:30 to 10 a.m. Korea time, bringing you more topics young people are talking about. Special thanks to Park Ki-hoon.
It was a pleasure.
And Nelson, you're beautiful.
Aw, thank you. You're beautiful
What
too.
about me?
You're beautiful.
We're all
too.
beautiful.
You're all beautiful. All right, and thank you everyone who's beautiful out there for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. We are News Generation.
하나, 둘, 셋.
Hey, Mr. Cupid, look my way. Make sure you listen to what I say. I may be stupid or quite naive.
끝없이